duh, duh, duh. That's my best one. I can't do it. I can't do it any better. It's
All
real
right.
creepy on the
But
movie, but
anyways, hey guys, Drew here from for Sci-Fi and Beyond, and we got our friend Eric White here. We're gonna review a little Australian horror picture from 2014. You may have heard of it. It's called The Babadook. Now, to let you guys know, if you've seen my top 10 scary or top 10 horror movies that I did back in October, I put it at number 10 and mentioned that it was the scariest movie that I've ever seen. And what are your thoughts on this movie overall?
overall, it's amazing. It's a movie that I go back to like every couple of years.
Yeah,
That is just it's always one that I fall back into, and I forget how good it is. Like I think about it now, because I hadn't watched it in probably a year or two before I watched it before we started doing this, and like all the hits are there that I remember, and then all like there's a lot of like small moments that I just forget about. That's just
right.
it's always like opening like a new gift every time I watch it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. The first time I've seen this movie 3 times in total. First time I watched it, like I was watching it with my mom, and I'm not even kidding. Like I had my blanket like from like my neck to my toes. That's how scared
Hmm.
I was
Oh
of
yeah.
this movie. Second time I watched it and I was like more like in this close to like the summer springtime in 2015. October I watched it, Home Alone. We met with me and my sister in the house. Didn't scare me as much, but I appreciated it more. I think the third
Hmm.
time I loved it even more
Yeah.
because with my nose, I have to kind of see it in that way. So it's not real. So this is not going to be really like a review. It's going to be like more like analyzing it and kind of
Yeah.
talking. We're going to go through the whole kind of movie real quick because we got both a bunch of notes here, so we'll kind of go through the movie real quick, or as quick as we can, and we'll have more of like an open discussion. All right, so if you're ready, let's get started.
Let's do it. Let's do
Yep.
it.
So the movie opens with a really great opening. We have a car crash here. We're introduced to our main character, Amelia, and then we quickly learn that this is actually a flashback of her husband dying. And then we get more information about that later, a little bit later in the movie. And so this flashback is actually interrupted by her son, Samuel,
Hmm.
was all just called Sam. So I want to say, a big name. Then we find out 3 things about Samuel pretty early on in the movie. We learn that he thinks that there's monsters in the closet, that he loves doing magic, and he misbehaves at both home and school, which are 3 important things that are important later in the movie. Like I said, if you have anything to say as I read these notes,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So then we have Amelia reading the 3 Little Pigs to Sam, and it cuts to a drawing of the big bad wolf, and then Sam says that he's going to kill it.
Mm.
Important later in the movie.
Right.
Yep. Next morning, Sam is building a monster killing weapon device as Amelia is waking up. Again, just more setup from the
Right.
movie.
Right. But he's doing it secretly, so he's always so.
Oh
But
yeah,
the amazing thing about this movie in a lot of ways is how it tells its story like visually. And so
mm-hmm.
like it's not over explained to the audience that like he's doing it secretly. You see him lock the door, put the key away, and then
Right.
go back to like his room. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff in this movie that is that is just is visually showing us versus like just telling us, which a lot
Yeah.
of like mainstream horror movies tend to
Yeah.
do is like over explain things.
And that's one thing I really appreciated this last viewing. So then it cuts to Sam doing a match for his mother, and then he goes to hug her and is rejected.
Mm-hmm.
This is very important later in the movie. Again, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it's set up.
So I had a question about that because I thought about that scene too. So was it the hug was too long, or was it the sound he was making? Because he makes like a weird sound too, and this time I noticed the sound more, and I wondered if that's why she pushed him away. I mean, I think it all applies back to like the intimacy, like her not being able to be intimate with anyone really after
Yeah,
her husband's death. But
yeah. Well, we haven't found out about the death. Yeah,
right, it's all kind of implied at this
yeah.
point.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
he just had intimacy issues. And then we see Amelia working at an elderly center. She's like a caretaker. She gets a
Mm.
call from Sam's school, cuts to a meeting with the principal, and he basically gets his Sam gets a spell for bringing one of his monster killing weapons to school.
Also, too, right before that, while she's at work, doesn't it introduce our like love interest? Like, what would be a love interest in like a lesser movie? You know what I mean?
I didn't really see that as a love interest. I just saw it more as like somebody like the Navy that they introduced to later as
Mm.
more somebody that cares for her.
I think I see it, especially watching the second time because later on he brings the flowers to her and like the
Oh
thing,
yeah, I forgot about
like it was almost like setting him up like in a normal movie. He would be the love interest. He would come in at the end and like
that.
rescue him or something like that. But
Yeah, I didn't
like
include all that in my notes.
right, but it's like as soon as she's like, I lied to you about like him not being sick, like he's gone, like gone from the movie even, like
Ooh,
never comes back. Like it's
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so then we get go to the grocery store. That's when Sam tells a stranger that his father died on the way to the
Mm.
hospital in a car crash to have him. And that sets up a pretty important another important thing in the movie where Amelia didn't like to have birthday parties.
Yeah.
He never had a birthday party for Sam because of that reminder. That played
Mm.
out. I didn't write that in my notes, but it's
Right.
important from the.
Never. It's that she never celebrates it on his day, so they're always
Oh yeah,
doing
they
it
said that at the very end of the movie.
right, right, because they're always like celebrating it on like the cousins. I think it's his cousin's birthday.
Yeah.
And so like they're like a week apart or something.
Mhm.
But they always celebrate on the same day.
Right.
Um, because I mean, I think for obvious reasons is that she doesn't want to be reminded of her husband's death on his day of birth,
Yeah.
which has
Well,
got to be a hard burden.
yeah, we'll talk about that later because it's interesting. Because why does he cease to celebrate it at all? Like,
Yeah.
if I was in that position where I was grieving over my spouse's death, when I was about to give birth to a child, then I just wouldn't
Hmm.
celebrate a birthday at all. I just want to acknowledge it.
I mean, maybe I don't know though. I mean, it could be that I mean, he's obviously like a 6-year-old kid, so I'm sure his cousins probably had birthdays, and probably at some point like the families were like, well, we'll celebrate them together or something.
Hmm.
I don't know. Like probably the sister played more of a role at some point early on after the car crash. I don't know. We're getting off into
Yeah.
the weeds a little bit. Also, too, I guess we should say spoilers for
Oh yeah.
anybody.
Well, that's obvious when I say we're gonna do an analogy of the movie.
Right.
So then later that night, I'm assuming, we have the dog scratching the basement door. Amelia tries to open it up, but it's locked, which is interesting. That plays out later in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then we cut to bedtime, and this is when the movie just like starts to get a little bit scarier. We cut to bedtime. Sam picks a book called Mr. Babadook. It's a
Mm-hmm.
red book with a silhouette of a creature wearing a top hat on the cover. And it kind of reminds me of Dr. Caligari mixed with
Mm-hmm.
Lon Chaney from London After Midnight.
Yep.
And a bunch of old horror movies kind of play into this movie too.
Right, right. It's all that like stark black and white, like German expressionism.
Oh yeah,
Like
very
all
very
the
influenced by that.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
all very creepy, especially when you consider that their house is all just grays and dark blues and
Yeah, like a Dr. Caligari or North
yeah, yeah. So like everything in there, and you really don't notice it when it's dark, but like in the daytime scenes, like if you're really looking, like all the walls are like
Mm,
gray in the living room, like everything is like black or slate or colors like that. And I think it's really just playing back into that what you were talking about with like Lon Chaney and those sort of black and white
yeah. Well, was a
horror.
reflection of her mood.
Yeah.
Um, I really hope we get like somebody finds like an actual cut of London After Midnight, like
All right.
in our lifetime. That would be so awesome. It's like one of the most iconic horror makeups ever.
Right, and it's just lost the time. Like it's just gone. Like
Yeah,
I can't believe that they don't have a print out there somewhere.
yeah. There's like screenshots and like parts of the scripts are
Right.
gone. So it's basically screenshots with like title cards.
Right, right. I assume that someday someone's going to open a trunk and find like all 3 reels of it or something.
Yeah. So continuing on to the analysis of the movie, the Babadook story starts out very innocent. It seems like that Mr. Babadook's your friend. You hear 3 knocks at the door, and then he says, Babadook, Dook, Dook. And that's when you know that he's around.
Mm-hmm.
Then the book kind of gets scarier from there, because we have this really creepy, disturbing part of the book where like the creatures like hovering over the kid in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Then Amelia starts quickly flipping through the pages, and then like more horrific images start to show. You get phrases like "you won't sleep a wink" in there, and then Sam keeps repeating, "Does it hurt the boy?" Then it cuts to Sam crying as Amelia reads the friendlier book down.
Mm-hmm.
Then
It's like a smash cut in there too. So in a lot of lesser horror movies, that would be like your jump cut, or it'd be your jump scare right there. Like the dog would jump in and they would like,
yeah,
we all got scared. But now it's just a simple cut from like increased like editing and music intention to like hard emotion, which is what this movie I think does really well. And different from a lot of like other horror movies is that it's like emotion is like always on its sleeve, as far as like either it's repressed or out in the open, like always.
yeah. And this movie rarely lets up.
Yeah.
Emotion wise. Then it cuts to Amelia and Sam laying on the bed together. Sam is already asleep. Amelia is awake and she's staring at the book on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Then she rereads the book as creepy music is being played, and then she puts the book back on top of the shelf, and the music stops, which I thought was really cool. Then Amelia watches TV and channel flips. She stops at a black and white romantic movie with a couple kiss, and this reminds her of her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next part, the first 2 times I watched it, I was like, it is unnecessary, because he goes up and let's just say to be PG, he pleasures her herself.
Right.
That was unnecessary the first couple times, but watching back at it, it's kind of important because you see that romantic movie, reminds her of her husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there to give her any sexual gratification.
Of course, yeah.
So she has to do it herself. So it's sort of important to that.
Right. I mean, I think it also goes back to sort of her emotional stuntedness, with like her coworker, and then like the couple she sees in the garage, who she's watching like in like a loving kiss in their car, like later on in the movie too. I think it all just kind of plays back into that. To her, it seems that her son is stifling her in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, like the director and the movie itself is implying that too, that the child is like keeping her from becoming like her true self, or what she desires most in the world. So like, it's really kind of about the horrors of like rearing children in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like the first half of the movie is, at least.
Yeah, and then so this gets interrupted by Sam, who hears the Babadook and crawls into bed with her. Then he mentions that he'll protect her, which plays a big part of it, big part of the movie later on. And then so it cuts to Sam sleeping, and then Amelia is reading, and she hears 3 soft knocks at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Then she ignores it. She hears 3 harder knocks at the door, and then she starts hiding on the cover. Then I read a side note saying that this starts her Babadook denial, and it starts the mind games.
Yeah.
And it also maybe starts to hint that maybe the Babadook kind of is about grief and her not really dealing with it properly. Then we get a time lapse to 9 o'clock in the morning. So she's back at work. Her coworker notices that she's tired and offers to take the rest of her shift. So Amelia, so she gets in the car. She looks across the parking lot and sees a couple making out. Another reminder of her husband, kind of like what you said. She could have had that.
Right.
But because of Sam.
Right. And also, I mean, also too is like the implication is that the coworker is like, go home, be with your son, and then she
Right.
immediately just goes to the mall and
Mm.
eats ice cream on a bench. You know what I mean? Like she is longing for the sort of the escape from him at that point. You know, like being by herself because it's just her and the kid like in the house by themselves like all day every day.
Right. And then she gets a text from her sister, Claire, who's babysitting Sam, who we're introduced
Mm,
to her earlier in the movie. Um, and that's where we got the whole birthday thing. So Amelia rushes over to Claire's house and finds that Sam told Claire and her daughter, Ruby, I believe her name is, about the Babadook and scared them. So then Sam throws a firecracker at Amelia, which is important later in the movie
mm-hmm.
at the very end.
Yeah.
So driving back home, Amelia says to Sam, if the Babadook was real, we see him right now. Then Sam responds, he wants to scare you first. Going back to the whole mind games thing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the scene too where he freaks out in the car and has a seizure,
No,
or is that
that's
earlier?
later.
That's later. Okay.
Yeah. And then Amelia finds out that Sam went down to the basement, and this is like when they're back at the house.
Right.
He went down to the basement, stole his father's stuff, which is connected to the dog scratching at the door.
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
also this is like the first time that she has seen he's disrupted like her memory of her husband. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
So like I think this is like so before the Babadook had been just sort of like scratching at the door. So I mean like literally scratching at the door and hasn't like appeared yet. And this is like 40 minutes in the movie at this point before he even like really shows up.
Yeah.
But and so like now that Sam has like has sullied the memories of her, like the pot starts stirring at that point, and like that's when she, to me at least, she lets the Babadook out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting point. I never really thought about that. You're making me see this movie in a different way too.
I love this movie. I watch it like I watch it probably every like two years or so.
Yeah, I
Like
need to watch it. I need to watch it a lot.
always go back to this one.
And then she goes down to the basement and she sees a photo of her and her husband,
Mm-hmm.
which plays out a little bit later.
Right, but then it's that weird shot where there's like Sam has like propped up the like the coat with like the hat
Oh,
and
it's just
everything.
that.
Right, on the wall.
Yeah, and that's
And
what,
it's
and that's like
go
her
ahead.
first real connection to the Babadook and her husband.
Right,
The hat and the jacket, that's the Babadook's attire, and it kind of implied that it was the husband's. So it's more of that mind games. Really, so you think
right,
Sam
right.
did that, right?
Say again.
You think Sam hung the jacket and the top hat?
See, I think he did, and I think he did it. And this is all just implication. I don't know for sure, but because he's down there like doing magic, I think he hung it to be like his audience,
Ooh.
or to be the implication that he's like, stop eating that. Sorry, my cat's trying to eat my headphones. Or to be that he's he's performing for his dad because he never got to meet his dad.
That's interesting. I never thought. I thought it was the Babadook that did that because
Oh, like hung it up.
yeah, well, we're gonna get to some stuff in here.
Right.
Where the Babadook clearly, we're like the mom thought Sam did it,
Mm-hmm.
but he blamed it on the Babadook. Which,
Right.
speaking of that, it cuts to them eating soup. She accidentally chews glass that was found in the soup. Cuts the roof of her mouth. She checks Sam's bowl and blames him. And then Sam said the Babadook did it.
Right.
More mind games.
So the thing is there, and this is what I love about the movie, is that it builds a lot of implications as to who you think is responsible for this, and it really like shifts your emotions too. So in the early half of the movie, like you're like, this kid is kind of a nightmare. Like he's unruly. Oh my god, boy cat. He's kind of unruly, and you really kind of feel for her because she's lost her husband. She has no other place to go. She's kind of running like a dead end job, or not a dead end job, but she's just working like a sort of like a menial shift of the job. You kind of see that in the bingo scene. But the implication in that scene is that Sam did it. Sam put the glass into the bowl. But really, my theory is that she's the one who's been doing all this. That she is like the Babadook, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so
Interesting.
that she put the glass into her own bowl, but she doesn't know she did that.
Yeah, I'm gonna hear more of your ideas about that when we get later into the movie because he gets
We'll get deep
possessed by
into
the
it.
well that
Yeah, we'll go. We can go deep into it. I could talk all night about the
yeah
Babadook.
well he gets possessed by the Babadook.
Right.
Yeah.
Or was she always possessed by the Babadook, and the Babadook was just her grief materialized?
I don't know. We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that when we get to that
We
part of
go
the movie.
on.
So then she goes into her bedroom, I believe, and sees a photo, that same photo, but her husband's part is actually covered in blood, which is more mind games. So what do you think that was trying to say there?
As far as like what the photo was, see, I don't know. I mean, the implication again is that Sam did it, but then upon rewatching the movie, it could easily have been her. I think Sam probably did that one.
Well,
I think
why would he?
why would he? Because of
Your theory about the coat and top hat. He's just trying to perform the mask to his father, like or pretend to.
right.
But then why would he cover up that part of the photo?
Well, I mean, I think the idea there is that he did it to strike back out at his mom, and it
Ooh.
was just that she was punishing him. She doesn't believe him when he keeps saying the Babadook is doing these things, and that that becomes his excuse. I mean, and also too, it could have been her that did it. I don't know. The best thing about like the Babadook is that it exists as a monster movie, where it is a monster movie, but then it also you can start peeling back these layers and going like, well, maybe that isn't exactly what I thought it was. I don't know. I love this movie.
Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking maybe it was the mom because maybe she's trying to like, get rid of that part because he of her memory
Right.
of her subconscious. Because also you got to remember anytime her husband is brought up, she kind of freaks out at people.
Right. She wants to. She probably spent so many years like pushing it down that she doesn't want to open up back up these memories.
Right.
And so like I wonder if something similar to this happens every year at his birthday. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like is this a one-time occurrence? Is this Babadook that we're seeing this week long we spend in these people's lives like the first time this has ever happened? Or
Interesting
is it a
point.
continuing thing that happens
Yeah,
every year?
interesting point. We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard a really interesting theory about it's a little bit later
Right.
in the movie. Okay, so cuts to Amelia sitting at the kissing tape. No, actually, going back to the photo, she confronts Sam. He thinks the Babadook did it, and he grabs the monster killing weapon. Again, going back to the whole protective side of Sam.
Right.
I think it's interesting. Cuts to Amelia sitting at the kitchen table in lights flicker. Meanwhile, Sam is in his bedroom and he hears the Babadook, and he goes to kill it. Cuts to Amelia hearing Sam screaming and goes to check on him. When she gets up to his room, he starts to freak out and he yells, "Don't let it in," over and over again.
Yeah. Scary. Super scary.
Yeah, which is freaky.
Yeah.
Then she takes the book downstairs, rips the pages, and throws it in the trash can outside.
Got a question. Who do you think wrote the Babadook book?
I'll get to that a little later.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll get to that later. Amelia and Sam goes to the birthday party for the niece and slash cousin. Yeah. The sister friend, one of her sister's friend mentions to Amelia that she used to be a writer, which is interesting because what you said, and we'll get back to that later.
Right.
He asks, "What kind of stuff did you write?" Amelia responds by saying, "I used to write articles for magazines and kid stuff." Keyword.
Kid stuff. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll get to that later because there's a side that implies something there. So then the mom starts another conversation about their husband. One mentioned that he works all the time, and it seems like he takes care of the kids 24/7. And then Amelia just goes off on them and this is the first time she really kind of stands up for herself in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
takes charge.
Right. I mean, also, I think you could view that scene as like, this is when the cracks start to show too. You know what I mean? Because she's been very like proper up until then about like being like respectful to everybody and just being like basically apologizing for Sam because he is kind of a nightmare. And this is like the first time you're right, like she's standing up for herself. So you start seeing that sort of like crack in her together, like her outside appearance, what she's been putting out to the world. This is when you start seeing like that start to crumple down.
Well, it's interesting because I think maybe she's heard some of her conversations like that, ever since her husband's death, and then she just had it at this point. So then it cuts to Sam hiding in his cousin's treehouse, and she basically tells them to get out. Meanwhile, Claire, her sister, Amelia's sister, and Amelia have a conversation about Amelia needing to get over her husband's death. So then it cuts back to the cousin verbally attacking Sam, saying the Babadook isn't real, the house is depressing, and Sam doesn't have a father. Cuts still, and then this is like a bunch of quick cuts in this particular scene. We quickly cut back to Amelia and Claire, who wants her sister to open up to her, and then Amelia mentions that Claire never comes over, and then Claire responds by saying it's because she can't stand being around Sam, and this angers Amelia. Yeah, and then I think that kind of sentiment kind of rubs off on Amelia a little bit later in the movie.
Right. No, I mean, but I think Amelia is already feeling that as well. Like I think she doesn't like Sam a lot of the times, which is I don't have any children, but I can only assume that it's child rearing is hard and you kind of need time to yourself occasionally. And she doesn't ever get that. And so like, I think it's her sister is like voicing what Amelia kind of already feels anyway.
Yeah, she just don't want to admit it.
Right.
I think it's more she has mixed feelings about Sam. I don't think she necessarily hates Sam.
No, I don't think she hates him either. I think you're right about that. But
so I've got a question.
Yeah.
So Sam is obviously annoying.
Yeah.
Do you like? Is it a good acting performance from that kid?
Well, I was reading about it too before we did this thing, and so like that kid was 6 years old when they made this movie.
He's 6 in the movie, right?
He's 6 in the movie too, yeah. And so Jennifer Kent, who directed this, this was like her first feature. She auditioned like older kids, but what she had said was like there was a facade to them. There was like everything seemed too calculated. Like the kids knew too much, like, and so like the performance felt like performances. You know what I mean? And like the kid who played Sam, his felt like a kid. Like it felt genuine in the sense that it was like a little boy. You know what I mean? And so I think it skirts that line pretty well. I think I think it's probably easier for like a scary movie like this. Like if this was a movie just about grief and drama, like it probably wouldn't work. But you can put kind of like you can put like scary music behind some things he does, and it really makes it horrifying.
Yeah, I think oh, sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. I think he works for the most part.
I think he's really good.
I think he's really good too.
Yeah, it's like an actual kid. I think Nico Hughes from Rescue's New Nightmare in Pet Cemetery, the original one, and then Jake Lloyd from The Sign are the same exact thing.
Yeah,
you had a little kid around that same age, or even younger, with Nico. Is it Nico or Miko? I'm not sure.
I don't know either, actually.
I think it's Nico.
Yeah, we'll just go with Nico.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will tell us in the comments if we had.
He was a lot younger than this kid in the Babadook.
Right.
And I think he brings out a really good performance in New Nightmare.
Yeah. No, I actually watched New Nightmare recently too. He's solid. He's solid like kid in it. There's a couple shots, and this happens in a lot of like early '90s movies where his reaction doesn't exactly match like what they're looking at, but it's like few and far between. Like most of the time, he's like spot on.
Yeah, I actually just watched him in Kindergarten Cop recently.
Oh, I forgot he's a kindergarten cop.
Yeah,
You're
that
right.
part when at the very beginning when he
Yeah.
stands up when like Arnold first gets there and he's like, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Yeah, the kid was
And then do the whole who's your daddy? What did he do?
yeah.
And then Nico goes, my dad's a gynecologist. He looks at vaginas all day. That's a classic
Classic.
movie right there. I love that movie.
Classic kindergarten cop.
Yeah, top 5 Arnolds for me.
I do love it. It's one of my favorites as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, then we cut back to the cousin telling Sam that the dad only died because he wouldn't have to deal with Sam. Going back to that whole, not liking like the hatred towards Sam.
Right. And then I think that also plays in. We'll cover this a lot later too. I think it plays into what Amelia sees in the basement whenever she finally goes down to confront the Babadook and sees her husband too.
Right. It's a really messed up scene.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah. So then Sam pushes her out the treehouse, and Claire gets angry. Now, I got a question here.
Mm-hmm.
Since Amelia is so depressed throughout this whole entire movie, do you think Sam's behavior is a result of that? He's looking for attention.
I think it is. I think it's probably cyclical in a lot of ways. I think her depression fuels the way he is, fuels the way he reacts to her, and then his reaction to her fuels her depression. So I think it's an ever growing like circle of like, I think her depression probably started it, and then it fueled him, and then it's just feeding back into each other like over and over.
Oh
and
yeah,
over.
definitely. So then it cuts to Amelia rushing home with Sam kicking and screaming in the backseat, yelling, "Get out, get out, get out!" a bunch of times. Then Sam just fucking freezes at this point, and then he is taken to the hospital. Then the doctor tells Amelia that he was suffering from high anxiety. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that that Sam's monster delusions are abnormal. Mm-hmm. The doctor suggests that Sam see a psychologist.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that word. Which takes a few weeks to get an appointment.
Right.
Then Amelia pleads to the doctor if there's anything Sam can take to help him sleep in the meantime. So I thought that whole monologue right there was really good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think as far as like, not her, because she gets kind of crazy later in the movie, but as far as like genuine emotion, just like grief and like sadness, I thought that was probably the best. Like,
right, no, I agree. But also you could also view that scene. It's like if you view the scene that she's been suffering this whole time from the Babadook or mental illness or whatever, then that scene takes a different bend in a way that she is like seeking that drugs for her son, but not for the reasons that she's saying to him. Like it's like addiction seeking behavior almost. I don't know. There's a lot of scenes in the movie that you can watch and then watch it from like, is she unstable? Is she riddled with anxiety and depression and things? And is that informing what she's doing more so than the care for like her son or vice versa? I mean, yeah, it's a great movie. You could dissect any scene in like different ways. And
and well, she's so reckless at this point,
right?
That she just wants some sleep,
right?
Yeah, and then so the doctor prescribed small dose sedatives to them. Then later that night, Amelia is about to tuck Sam in. He tells her that that his cousin told him that nobody likes him, and then Amelia responds by saying sometimes people say things they don't mean, which is interesting. And that kind of plays out a little bit later.
Yeah.
In the movie. And then Amelia goes downstairs. She hears knocking at the door. Answers the door. Nobody's there. She hears pounding at the door. Answers the door. And then she sees the book sitting on the porch. And she takes it inside. I didn't even think about this. The way that the book is portrayed is kind of like a MacGuffin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a term in the film that Advocate Scott did not really invent, but he really like honed in on that. and it's basically like an object that's important. So
Hmm.
any Indiana Jones artifact, the Infinity Gauntlet from all the Marvel movies, or the Infinity
Yeah.
Stones rather, the book in this movie, it's basically like an important item, or even
Right.
a person.
An
'Cause,
important item that doesn't really for this movie doesn't really influence the rest of the movie. Like really, like it's the grief would still be there without the book. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
but I think it
the
kind of
father would
plays
still
a
be
part
dead.
of it.
Maybe, yeah. How do you figure? Want to hear?
Because he's trying to get rid of this book,
Yeah.
to get rid of that, like to get rid of like memories, or kind of like get rid of the guilt, which kind of plays into that metaphor of the Babadook being grief.
Right.
But it keeps coming back. Is that every time she sees the book, that constant reminder of her
Right.
grief is
So,
turning saw on the road. She's
hmm,
still grieving, but it's still that. It's still bigger. It's like a big reminder, I guess. That makes
gotcha.
any sense.
So, do you think she made the book? I think the implication is that she wrote the book.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think she
just get rid of that. Yeah, just go ahead
right?
and do that theory.
She wrote the book. But do you think she wrote the book to deal with her grief? Like, is
Yeah.
that sort of like her artistic letting go of it?
Yeah, well, I know the guy that wrote the Crow comic,
Yeah.
James Barr, he wrote the Crow to deal with the death of his girlfriend.
Hmm. Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So she sees the book sitting there. She flips through it, and there's more horrific images, and she sees the phrase, "The more you deny, the stronger I get."
Right.
Yeah, and I think that played on to that whole, the more like she gets rid of it, like the more I'm gonna come back, and that's like that constant reminder.
Right. Right.
Um, so then there pops ups. And this is the pop up book. I got to mention that the mom killing the dog, Sam, and then herself, which is
Yep.
really fucked up.
Right. No, it's super super messed up, especially for like cartoon drawings doing it.
Mm.
But also too, like this is so the original pop-up book is pretty standard pop-up book sort of thing. Like you got the little pull tabs and everything. For this scene is like when we finally sort of break with reality in a lot of ways. And so like these pop-up books are doing things that a normal pop-up book really can't do in
Yeah,
those situations, like the throat slit and then the squeezing, like the wringing of the hands. And so to me, like this is when like the reality of her mind kind of breaks in the story, and this
yeah,
is when she kind of starts letting the Babadook affect her outside
yeah, and
world.
that's another interesting thing I want to touch on a little bit later, and like more in the open discussion part of the video.
Yeah.
I have to. I know they put out an edition of this movie on Blu-ray where it's a slipcover, and it's actually the pop-up book. Oh
I
yeah.
got it. I have it. Hang on.
I hate you. Do 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 do.
Yeah, sorry, I should have grabbed it earlier, but yeah, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know where I can find that?
No, I bought it from like Hastings before they went under.
Really? It's like
Yeah, I don't know.
off on Amazon.
They're how much?
$70.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, because
That's
it's like out of
insane.
print. Like that
Yeah,
particular version.
I had found it on like a whim. I just
It
went
was
into like
just
a
that
Hastings.
page, right?
Yeah, it's just that one page, but you could buy the whole book. At one point, they were selling like replicas of the book. Like they sold like 1,500 copies or something like that.
I think it'd be interesting if they did like multiple versions of the book. Like it's like the standard book, and then it's the one where like she fucking kills like Harry Potter.
Right?
So
Whew.
I'm cursing a lot, but this is like kind of a scary movie. Yeah, so I need to see if I can get that because I was kind of debating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the movie's so scary, like I don't want to have that in my house. But like it's a cool novelty kind of thing, like, for a
Oh
collector.
yeah, no, totally. Like I never owned it before this, and so like I saw it and I was just like, I'm gonna pay the. It's like $30 for it. I was like, I'm gonna pay the $30 for this.
Didn't it? I think that's South Factory, I believe.
Is it? I have no idea actually. It may have been.
It's not on their website.
Yep, it is. It's where a Scream Factory or whatever the offshoot
South
is.
Factory is the whole company. Just Scream Factory is that branch of it.
Right.
Yeah. You don't have any Scream Factory Blu-rays, definitely start collecting those if you're a big horror fan.
Oh yeah, no, I love them. I don't have that many. I wish I had more.
I only got 2.
Yeah, I have that one and Escape from New York. Maybe no, maybe it's The Thing. I can't remember. It's one of the John
The Thing. The Thing is like one of my favorite Blu-rays, like of all time.
Oh no, it's great. It's the one that has like 3 discs with it?
I think I have it right here. I know we're stalling.
Yeah, we're just kicking this game. We're just having a conversation now. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab that. It's actually this one right here.
Oh, I do not have that one. I was thinking of. I think I have Escape from New York.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I watched that last night.
Yeah, no, I need to watch it. It feels like the perfect movie to watch when the weather is super snowy out.
Yeah. So anyways, we got to the book being burnt. So then Amelia's on the phone with Claire and tells her that her and Sam are being stalked, and she also tells her about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Claire hangs up, and Amelia walks away from the phone. The phone rings again. Amelia picks up the phone, thinking it's Claire, and there's a long pause, and then Babadook, dog, dog.
This is like the first real like scare in the movie too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is like 40 minutes in. Like most horror movies would have had like at least a jump scare at the 20-minute mark at this point. You know what I mean? They're really like holding it out.
Yeah. And then Amelia quickly hangs up the phone. I did a tribute to like some of my favorite movies like a while back.
Mm-hmm.
One of my proudest editing moments is when I did that scene. And then when I got to the last like Duke part, I did the part when the Babadook's like falling on her and like doing the Batman thing. And then I cut to the Queen Xenomorph from Alien doing, and then Hannibal Lecter doing. Like I like my most proudest editing moment ever.
It's great.
Too bad I don't have that video up anymore. Like anywhere. Yeah, like something like happened and. I need to like redo it, but
yeah, you can always go back and redo it.
Okay, so this is another interesting part in the movie. She goes to the police station to report the stalking and tell them about the book. She mentions that she burnt the book and there's nothing they can do about it. And then Amelia looks behind the desk and sees a jacket similar to the Babadook.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to Amelia's hand with pencil marks, implying that she wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going back to when she said kids, she wrote kid stuff.
Right.
Which is interesting. So Amelia is doing laundry when she finds a cockroach on her shoulder. Then she notices that they're coming from behind the refrigerator. She moves the fridge and she sees wallpaper, like a little thing of wallpaper.
Mm-hmm.
She pulled back the wallpaper, reveals a hole where a whole bunch of roaches are coming from, are crawling out. Then the Department of Community Service makes a visit to talk to her about Sam schooling.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know what Department of Community Services is. Is that like an agency?
I believe it's like DHS for like they're making sure that they're doing house calls to make sure that Sam isn't being abused or anything like that. But I think that's like the Australian version of it. I can't be for sure. I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so they're just doing a house visit for him.
So the two agents and Amelia go to the kitchen, and she tells them about the cockroach infection. And then she looked over to the hole which disappeared, and that's more mind games right there. and then the two agents
Right.
leave. One of the
Right.
freaky.
But
Now,
is so it,
well,
wait, go ahead.
no,
I was just gonna say, so is the director playing mind games with us at that point, or is she playing mind games with herself at that point? You know what I mean? Like that's something to think about. So if you look at like the book when she opens the book back up, and after the phone call is like her sort of breaking with the reality, then that everything that happens after that is like all within like her head, and her delusions of the Babadook really start appearing. You know what I mean? Like holes in walls and stuff like that. The decay, like going to sort of like Blue Velvet, and so like the bugs that are underneath the ground. You never seen it? It's rough. It's a hard watch, but so like there's the opening of that movie. There's like bugs underneath the like this white picket fence and like roses and like perfect yard and everything. So it's like the decay that's happening underneath her right now. But yeah, sorry, what were you saying? I think I cut you off.
Yeah. So, anyways, then we come to a pretty scary part of the movie where Amelia is watching dishes. She looks over at the neighbor through the window watching TV. And on the TV, you hear phrases like, "What was that noise?" and "Are you sick?" Which is interesting because definitely Amelia is very mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole, what that noise, sound plays a big part of this movie.
All right.
She looks down for a second and then looks up again, and she sees the Babadook standing right behind the neighbor. More mind games. Now it's interesting. There's no music and there's no like loud. Boom.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. You just see the Babadook standing there, and that's more scary.
Yes. No. It's super terrifying.
Yeah.
Like there is no like.
Oh, sorry. I
No,
don't know if you heard of a film critic on YouTube called Chris Stuckman. He did what was that?
I haven't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he did a video about the problem with horror movie today, and he kind of talked about like sound and music.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link to that video.
Yeah, please do. But I guarantee I kind of already know what he's talking about. There's a lot of, if something scary happens, we're gonna have like big orchestral like bong, like shake the speakers on your TV.
Well, he was talking about that scene in like Halloween where the Sarah goes up behind Donald Pleasance, and there's no music, and he played the scene in with music, and then it worked the same way. Kind of the same thing here. If you added music, and music helps at some point. Yeah, I mean, Jaws wouldn't be Jaws without John Williams' score. Can you still hear me?
Wait, did you freeze?
No.
Yeah, I can. Yep, I think you're back. Sorry, okay. I think you froze for a second.
Then we cut to Amelia reading to Sam, who is already sleeping. We are scratching at the door, and then the dog howls, and then Amelia lets it in. Then there's a pause. Scratching continues. Maybe the dog was getting away from the Babadook. Maybe. Door slowly opens. Babadook comes into the room. Amelia hides under the cover. Here's Babadook crawling up the walls. He says his catchphrase, the Babadook, Dook, Dook thing. Amelia looks up from the covers, sees Babadook on the ceiling. The Babadook jumps off the ceiling and attacks Amelia. Then it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
More mind.
Well, it goes inside. Well, the idea is too. So you see it come down, and then you cut to a shot of like her mouth opening and like breathing in.
Oh yeah.
So it's like her like ingesting this thing.
Yeah.
The Babadook. You know what I mean? Like,
and that was very Batman. The way he fell. He had like his head on.
Right. But it happens so fast too. Like you barely get a shot of like you barely see any of his face or his like features. You know what I mean?
That's scary.
Like.
And that's
why it's super scary.
Yeah, and that's why it's scary. It's like it's going back to like the xenomorph Alien. You barely see that, and you see the only really gory part in Alien is the chest burster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then it cuts to Amelia and Sam watching TV as he slowly falls asleep. She had the dream, I guess, where the Babadook appears in a bunch of old George Méliès movies, such as The Cakewalk Inferno, The Clown with the Portable Body, and Courtship of the Sun and Moon. Which I thought I really love the creepy music here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't act so impressed, because I actually have to look up these movies. I didn't know them off the spot.
I recognized some of the stills, but I had no idea what movies they were. So
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you looked them up. I didn't know.
Time lapse to next morning.
Mm-hmm. They always do it. That's another thing too. They always do a time lapse from like her like sleep. You know what I mean? So it's almost like she never gets enough sleep.
Right. And we'll talk about the George Méliès thing later in the video. Yeah. Amelia cuts out sick. She tries to go to sleep, but Sam interrupts her, saying that he's hungry. Going back to the whole thing, she wants to do something, and Sam interrupts it. And then C. English says, "Well, if you're hungry, then you can go eat shit."
Yeah.
You'll slowly get into that crazy kind of Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
Right. But it also goes back to, because she does right after that is she admonishes what she just says to him about what the little girl said to Sam earlier in the movie. It was like, sometimes we say stuff we don't mean, and so you're tying all that back together. I had another point. I can't remember what it was now. But also feeding, and so like feeding Sam happens to tie back around again at the very end, which we'll probably get into here at the end of it.
So then Sam runs out of the room, feeling bad. Amelia checks on Sam and sees him crying in his bedroom, and then she offers to go eat out for breakfast. Then it cuts to Amelia and Sam eating at a restaurant. The table next to them has a bunch of ratty kids, and Sam and Amelia are silent, which is an interesting contrast.
Right.
Because those kids are acting sort of like normal kids. You know what because kids are pretty rowdy. I would know. I used to take care of kids at a church camp.
Right.
For a number of years, so I know how kids are. So it just kind of shows the dynamic between Sam and Amelia.
Right. Who Sam has been super rowdy up until this point. In the movie. And so like you see in that dichotomy between like what these normal kids are versus like what he is at that point. And I don't know. You could take it both ways. It could be that that's the turn in the movie where he suspects something is different about his mom now, or that
or different,
or that he hasn't really been that rowdy this whole time, and a lot of this has been in his mom's mind. So if it goes back to that she's been doing this the whole time, is that the implication is that he isn't as bad as she thinks he is.
Right.
So I don't know, but you can take it either way. there's no like wrong answers or right answers. Like I love this movie.
Then we cut to Amelia and Sam going for a drive before they go back home. The cockroaches start crawling all over her again, and then she sees the Babadook in the rearview mirror. Says the catchphrase, Babadook, Duke, Duke. And then as Amelia crashes into another car, and this is more mind games. The guy gets out of the car. This is getting the car crash with. He gets out of the car, starts yelling at Amelia, and then Amelia drives away, and the guy calls her a crazy bitch, which I thought was kind of a funny line in the movie for whatever reason. And then it cuts to Sam finding Amelia sitting in the bathtub. Sam offers to call the aunt and ask her to come over. And Amelia says, well, she didn't want to talk to us anymore. And she picks up Sam and puts her in the tub with her. And then Sam says, I don't want you to go away. And Amelia responds, I'm not going anywhere. And that whole thing kind of reminds me of The Shining a little bit.
Oh, yeah. No,
the part when he goes up to the bedroom and he sees Jack there and he says, do you like it here, Danny? Right.
But then also like the room room 246. You know, like or is it 246? Whatever the room with the old lady in the bathtub is, like that room.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't thinking like in that direction, but that's interesting. So then we have Emilio walking upstairs to bedroom to violin. Which I don't know the significance of that. Was that her husband's violin?
Yeah, I think because he's the violin is attached to the clothes in the basement
Ooh.
too. There's like a violin attached to like one of the hands, like
Mm,
hung on the wall or something like that. So I assume that he was a musician of some sort, probably played the violin.
yeah. Yeah, so she goes upstairs with the violin and then she lays in bed. Sam crawls in bed with her and he says, I don't think we should stay here tonight. I can call Mrs. Gross, the neighbor. And then
Hmm.
Amelia responds by saying, I don't want to call anyone. I just want to sleep. And she falls asleep. And then this is my favorite part of the whole movie right here. Because I was so genius how they did this. Time
Hmm.
lapse of her sleeping with whispering. She hears there's something in the house softly. Whispering continues, and then she hears there's something in the house loudly, which wakes her up. She goes down the stairs, and the whispering continues, and then she kind of looks around the room. The whispering stops for a second, and then whispering begins again. And this whole kind of part of the movie kind of reminds me of Suspiria a little bit.
Yeah.
When we have the main character played by Jessica Harper kind of roaming around this ballet studio, and you hear like,
Hmm.
the creepy music by Goblin, and you're like whispering, and there's like like witchcraft going on, and
Right.
um, love that whole scene in this movie. I think it was so beautiful how it was done, and it's not over yet.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's it's just getting started.
So Amelia goes into the kitchen and she catches Sam talking to neighbor on the phone. Amelia So that's what the whispering was.
Hmm.
So maybe like she was so tired at that point, like maybe she couldn't fully comprehend what was going on. She was in like a kind of like a half sleep, half awake kind of state
Right.
at that moment. I thought that was kind of interesting. This
Oh yeah, no, like that whole thing. All the sound design in this is amazing, especially in this like last half.
So then Amelia yells at Sam and then cuts the phone line. Sam says that the Babadook made her crash the car and he didn't want her to let it in. And then
Hmm.
Amelia responds by saying Sam is making up the Babadook and she won't let anything in the house. And then Amelia and Sam prepare for the Babadook, Evil Dead style.
Yeah.
And then Amelia has a nightmare where she kills Sam, going back to that hate.
Hmm.
That kind of conflicting hate. Do I hate Sam? Do I love Sam?
Right, right, right. Is this where she sees him and he's like all bloodied, like,
Yeah.
and she like wakes up? Yeah.
Mhm. So then Emilio channel flips. We saw the unmasking scene from the 1935 Phantom of the Opera.
Mm.
I don't think there's really any significance there. It just kind of adds kind of creep factor to it. Maybe.
Maybe, or maybe because
Maybe
this is right
unmasking
before,
feelings.
right? It could be unmasking feelings. I think it may have something to do with the part because isn't this right before she gets possessed, like fully possessed by the
Yes.
Babadook, or is that later?
Yes.
So I
Parts
think it
different.
is like right. I think it's leading to that, or at least like setting our audience up that we're about to be thrown into the full horror of what the Babadook is.
Yep. And then she flips to a news story, and this is like the creepiest part of the movie right here.
Yeah.
She flips to a news story where a mother killed her, not her husband, I wrote husband, killed her son. So soft in
Hmm.
the house. And then we see, like, I kid you not, this is like when it starts to get creepy. We see a woman pull back the window curtain, and then it slowly like starts to zoom in on her.
Yeah.
Zoom in, like cuts, like zoom cuts, whatever you call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Right.
And then she sees herself staring very creepily through the window.
Right.
More
So
kind of
she
mind games.
so the idea there is, and I go back to this a lot, is like woman she sees in the window is smiling, like looks happy that she killed her son and
That's
dog.
supposed
You
to
know
be
what I mean?
her.
Do what now?
But that's supposed to be her.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's supposed to be her. I think it is. Now I
Maybe
don't know. Now I don't know. I always thought it was, but I never really,
it
because it
could
happens
be
really quick.
maybe like it was somebody like a woman that actually killed her son.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I always thought it was her, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I
Yeah,
have to go back and rewatch it now.
yeah. Well, I don't because that's so it's just like creepy. Actually, cause I've never seen any David Lynch movies, but I
hmm
was watching that clip on YouTube, and in the
hmm
comments, somebody said that this reminds me of the diner scene from Mulholland Drive, and I actually,
Oh,
or it's like up there with that diner scene. And I actually looked it up. It's pretty genius how David Lynch does that scene. So I've seen a few analyzing. He basically tells you like what you're gonna see.
yeah. It tells you exactly what you're going to see, and you're still not ready for it when it happens.
Mm.
It's Mulholland Drive is an amazing, really long film, but yeah, that scene in particular is unsettling to say the least.
So then we have Amelia following Sam down to the basement. She sees her husband there. They hug, and he says, "We can be together. You just need to bring me the boy."
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is the Babadook. I think that's definitely the Babadook messing with her.
Right, right. I mean, yeah. So it's either the Babadook messing with her, or it's her own mind messing with her, and
Ooh.
thinking like her happiness can come if she just gets rid of her son. Just like the smiling woman in the TV. You know what I mean? Like her problems to her at that point in her mental state, it comes from her son. So if she gets rid of him, then she can start anew. She can be with her husband or whoever at that point, you know what I mean? Because like when you cut back to the father too, like you lose he's got like a top light is out, so like all you're seeing is just like dark overhangs in the bottom of the face. So it's can be anybody at that point. I don't know.
I think
It's great.
me and you need to do, so we're coming up with interesting
Mm,
conversations here. We need to like collaborate and like write like an alternate version of this movie. Where like
okay.
when Amelia actually kills his son.
Oh man, that's
Like,
dark.
no, we just need to explore like how she feels about it,
All right,
like the negative repercussions of it. I think
all right. I
I
can
think
just
that'd be pretty interesting.
yeah. It takes place like after the fact, like after she kills her son.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty.
I
Babadook
mean,
2, Electric
what?
Boogaloo.
Right, another Boogaloo, electric Babadook.
Yeah, plot twist is gonna. The whole plot is gonna be her trying to save the rec center.
Right. It's a feel good movie of the summer.
The opening scene is when she kills her son.
That's how you open the movie, and then from there it's a lighter comedy about her living her best life.
Okay. And then Amelia sees the Babadook in the kitchen, and she runs upstairs where she gets possessed by the Babadook and kills the dog.
Yeah, no,
I,
that's an amazingly terrifying scene where like it's like I guess they've got him on some sort of like dolly cart or something. He's pushing like motionlessly towards camera with his arms like out like to the sides. It's terrifying. Like all that sort of supernatural esque
yeah.
like movement, not walking.
Well, you get a very Freddy Krueger moment there too when he pops the claws out. Like he already had the like, kind of the claws like to his side, and he like pops them out.
Right.
Very Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah.
Well, after she's possessed, I forgot to write this. She's watching TV. She's actually watching a movie called Black Sabbath
Mario
by
Bava.
Barbara.
Yeah.
With Boris Karloff, which is a anthology movie with three different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Also, fun fact: that's where their heavy metal band got the name.
Really?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Like one of the members like walked past the poster, and he was like, "Hey, if people pay good money to get scared in a movie, how about they get paid to get scared at a rock concert?"
Sound logic. That's sound logic.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. So as he's watching the movie, he sees the dog and goes and kills it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of messed up. And then she chases Sam upstairs to his bedroom. He locks the door, and she very nicely asks him to open the door, which reminds me of the signing again. You know, when he gets locked out, when he gets locked into the freezer or the food cabinet, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And you know,
I think so. There, it's like you were saying before. It's playing with sort of audience expectations. Is she possessed? Is she not possessed? You know, like is she of sound mind? Is she mentally fit? Is she not? You know what I mean? I think all that kind of plays in there too.
right. And then she aggressively busts open the door. She basically climbs on top of it, like Spider-Man, just like
Yeah,
legs to like kick open the door. And
it's
then she
insane.
oh yeah, it was crazy. And then she starts to threaten Sam with that whole exchange is straight up like from the signing, like straight up, like the whole mocking. You know, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me when Jack is imitate or making fun of
Wendy.
mocking Wendy.
Yeah.
Yeah, is he happy? Then you get the whole threat thing with involved like brains. He said, "I want to bash your effing brains in."
Right.
See, and then in the Babadook, the mom said, "I want to slam your head into a broke wall till your brains pop out." Which is
Messed up. It's messed up. So like that was another thing. While we're talking about this, she is like the kid wasn't in those scenes wherever she was saying those things. They I read an interview with her.
I think she said the kid was in there. She made it a lot less.
Right.
Yeah, she said pick your Legos and throw them across.
Yeah, exactly. So for anybody out there who's wondering, this was like child abuse. I think they were very careful about it.
Yeah. So as far as like a similar scene to that, who you think played it better? Do you think Jack Nicholson played that scene better, or do you think S.C. Davis played that scene, that kind of similar scene better?
I will make the argument that I believed her performance more because I had never, up until this point, I had never seen her in any other movie.
Right.
So at this point, I had no idea what she was capable of, like from the start of the movie to this point. And so I've seen Jack Nicholson, 20, 30 movies by the time I saw The Shining, or after that. And so like I already knew Jack Nicholson was already like on the fringes of just like almost always. I'd seen Cuckoo's Nest at that point, so he's always like skirting that line. I think she's scarier than Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah,
Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson. I don't know this lady. This lady really could be crazy, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think Jack Nicholson's more entertaining in the styling, less scary.
Yeah.
You know who you think would make a really good Jack Torrance?
I don't know who.
Yeah, no, his name escapes me. I can see his face. The guy from The Invisible Man.
Which the Invisible Man or the
the new one, the newest one, like Oliver Conan James or whatever his name is.
That guy, yeah.
I think he'd be a really good Jack Torrance.
Maybe they should remake it. I mean, they did remake it in the '90s with the guy from Wing. That sitcom. It was not very good.
Dude, I need there's this guy I like to watch all the time. There's a little bit of falling out that happened, but he's called the Nostalgia Critic. He has reviewed that whole miniseries, and he does like little skits like in his videos, like reviewing like movies.
Yeah.
And so like he started reenacting like the Jack Nicholson signing of him like slowly like going slow, like slowly crazy. And they straight up like did parodies of like the different scenes in that movie in this Cooper version, which is what I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link to it. It's really funny.
Yeah, please do.
So then going back to the firecracker thing, part, we had Sam throwing firecrackers at the mom. And then see and then he get he escapes.
Right.
Room.
This is where he used his gun, right? It was like
not yet. Well, here's the thing. I got to write notes at this point because I I have to watch this movie in segments, like
Yeah,
for the past 4 days. And at this point, I was like, "Oh, screw it! I'll just kind of."
we'll just wing it. Like at this point, like the movie is like full tilt, like off the rails horror movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I quit taking, and also I quit taking notes around this point too, because I was just it's hard not to get swept up in it once everything goes to pot.
When I'm new to taking notes while watching movies too.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible at it. I usually have to watch. It usually has to be a movie that I've seen before. So like Babadook's fine, but if I'm watching like a new movie, like there's no way I'm like gonna be able to stop every 5 seconds, like write
Yeah.
something down.
I'm doing that with the Elm Street movies right now.
Mm,
I'm doing because I'm watching them, like reviewing them on
yeah.
um or doing like run reviews. So those will be out soon. And I want to get back. I want to talk to you about that after we
Okay.
record this.
All right.
Um, so it's tricky because like the first one, like I've seen enough time to just write stuff that I've noticed or that I like. The second one, it's so weird. It's like a lot of the weird moments in that movie with
Right.
the Jesse character. I just write like the weird moment. Dream Warriors when I kind of did like this, but I did it like beat for beat because I love that movie so much.
Oh no, Dream Warriors is great. It's like one of the like one and three are arguably the best ones, and
New
then
Nightmare.
maybe New Nightmare, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of those ones near the end get like Freddy's Dead is a laugh riot, not in like a good way.
Yeah. Then the mom chases Sam around the house. Sam attacked her with the monster killing weapon with like it was like an arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then went past her and hides. And then did a knock at the door at the neighbor, saying, I love you and Sam. If you need anything, just let me know. And then eventually Sam knocks out the mom and then ties her up in the basement.
Right. Also, keep this in mind too. So in the scene where she talks to the neighbor, like just the top half of her face is visible. So in the scene with the Babadook downstairs, where it's her husband, you only like when you cut back to that reverse shot, you see just like the bottom of his jaw, and now you're seeing the reverse of her, which is just the top half. So it's that playing back into that duality of person. Is she becoming more Babadookish, or is she succumbing to her mental illness? I don't know.
So then we have Amelia trying to choke out Sam when she's tied up in the basement. He escapes. She gets the Babadook out of her by throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Babadook drags. And then they get out of the basement. Babadook drags Sam upstairs to Amelia's room, which starts to say, Exorcist style. Amelia sees another version of her husband, or another vision of her husband, who reminds her of the event that took place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top half of his head get cut off. And what do you think the significance of that is? The head.
I think that is the direct representation of her grief. I think his head was chopped off in the car crash. That's what I think. I think that is the quite literal part of it.
The only moment of the movie.
Yeah, it's the goriest moment in the whole movie. You're right. Yeah.
Very Dawn of the Dead. Very Dawn of the Dead.
Right. But it's also weird in the sense that there's no like violence in the sense that you would like hit a zombie in the head like that. If you hit a zombie there, it would be an object and there would be a person involved. Like the violence happens without another person there, which is
or an object.
Yeah, right. So it is the representation of violence, the representation of the representation of violence. So it's a weird thing to think about whenever you get into all this being in her mind or not. And is that how he died? Is that how she sees his death as being violent? I don't know.
And then the Babadook appears. And he slowly like kind of creeps up to Amelia and Sam. Amelia starts screaming at the Babadook and threatening it, and then eventually it goes away. And then
is this the big arms on the wall like come out, or is this in a second?
I can't remember.
There's at one point down there, like big arms like come out, and all you see is like the arms, like the silhouette of the arms on the sides.
I think that's what it is. I can't remember. Kind of all of it kind of runs. In,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Then a scarecrow looking Babadook comes out and then flops down. And then Amelia goes to test the pop hat. POV shot of the Babadook fleeing to the basement. Very dead-like.
Right. It also comes out and is like taller than her. And so it comes out, goes up, and looks down at her as she. There's a scene somewhere like maybe 20 minutes before this where we finally, and I am not for sure on this, but I think it's true, is where the camera's always been looking down at Sam until they have a conversation on their bed, and then it's at eye level. So the whole time she's been looking down at Sam. And I just find it really interesting that the Babadook comes out and is now looking down at her. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what the implication is for it as like a monster. It is a monster. It's just huge. It's bigger than her. But I think it is like the grief is bigger than her. You know what I mean? Like
it has more. It was having more power over her.
Right.
I didn't notice that. That's interesting. Then we cut to sometime later. Sam's birthday was to celebrate it for the first time on the day. Amelia didn't like doing this because of the memory of her husband's death.
Right.
Amelia told the community service agents that she found a new school for Sam because they needed to sort a few things out. You know, the whole everything that took place in the movie, pretty much.
Right.
She goes down to the basement to feed the Babadook worms, and then she goes outside to be with Sam and hugs him. And that's the end of the movie. And he did the Magneto before that.
Right. And that's it. That's the Babadook. It's an amazing movie. It's a wonderful, terrifying ride into child rearing and grief and you know, spindly fingered monsters with top hats.
Yeah, so I guess we can have a little bit of an open discussion right now.
Sure.
For a little bit. I got some questions here. So my first question is, do you think Sam and Amelia are actually seeing the Babadook, or is it all in their heads?
See, I wonder. I don't know. And then, so again, like the best part about the movie to me is that you can easily read it two different ways at all times. And so that I think it is both a monster movie and a movie about grief. And I think that she thinks she can see it. I don't know if Sam actually sees it or not. I think he may just be a kid. He does. I don't know. Why do you think he does?
Well, at the end. Yeah. When we had that,
does he see it? Well, does he see it though? Like, because she picks him up and it's like his back is to the Babadook when she's like screaming at him.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's interesting.
I don't know. I know he thinks it's real because he asks her like, you know, how was it today? Or she like tells him how it was today when she goes to like to feed the worms, and he's collecting the worms to feed the Babadook.
Maybe he didn't see it.
Do I know?
Maybe he didn't see it because she says, "Hey, you're not ready to see it yet, or you're not ready to sit down with me to feed the Babadook."
Right.
I'm thinking,
I don't know. I mean, I
think both.
Go ahead.
I definitely think it's both. I think the Babadook is real. I think he came up with it to kind of get rid, not get rid of her grief, but to kind of deal with her grief a little bit. I think a lot of this stuff isn't real. Like a lot of the mind game kind of stuff. I don't think that's real. I think a lot of it is kind of in her own like imagination.
Right. So that's an interesting thing then. So then the Babadook
all the time.
Right. But so then the Babadook in the basement doesn't look like the Babadook, doesn't look like, like this Babadook, you know what I mean? Because we never see him. So the mind stuff would be like the spindly arm, top hat wearing guy. You know what I mean? But the thing in the basement, like the real Babadook, the real thing behind the mask, because the curtain falls. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
clothes fall out. Doesn't look like that. It
I
looks
think
like
anything
something
about
else.
the book too is actually the Babadook.
Hmm.
So I think it's two different forces coming at once. I think it's the supernatural force of
Mm-hmm.
the Babadook,
Mm-hmm.
and then her, like, she's so mentally like detached from the world.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it's always going to be there. So even if you literally can walk away from the movie believing it like it is real or it isn't real or they're both like it doesn't have to be one way or the other. But
Yeah.
just so you know that like the Babadook is either always going to be with her or that the grief is always going to be with her, and then it's going to have to be constantly
Mhm.
looked upon and checked and kept in check. Otherwise, it can get out of hand again, and that could be the Babadook or her grief. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they both go hand in hand. I think at a certain point.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit. What do you think the film tries to say about grief of the death of a loved one?
Um, I think this is a I think this is something that like horror movies and like fantasy films and science fiction and stuff like that does very well in masking a really hard to talk about issue and putting it inside of a metaphor or putting it inside of a monster. And so like putting legs to your grief for this movie, it's about grief. For other movies, maybe, any myriad of other things, violence or depression or, mental illness or anything like that. A lot of movies do that. But I think what it does very well is it puts a physical face to it so that one audience could watch it and go like, it's a monster movie. It may be a boring monster movie because you don't see the monster for 40 minutes if that's what you came for. But I think it's great in the sense that you can watch it from both ends, and it is about grief and it isn't about grief. It is about
Right.
depression. It's not about depression. I don't know. I think it's we could sit here and argue all day about like what it's like really about, but I think it's what you take from the movie, which is what makes it so well. Which is when you're talking about David Lynch earlier, I think that applies to like almost all of his work. So like
Right.
a lot of people watch it and go like, "Oh, this is farce. This is satire. This is absurdly violent," and none of it makes sense. Or some people will watch it and go like, "This applies to here. It's about attacking like Americana and stuff like that." So like, I think you can watch it and you can draw different things from it. What do you think?
I think a lot of it. I think she. I know what I want to say. It's just hard to articulate it sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think she's been bottling up this emotion of grief for so long. She wrote the bubble to kind of deal with it, but she didn't necessarily remedied it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that Babadook is necessarily like a villain. Maybe
Yeah.
basically there to kind of open up her eyes.
Hmm.
Basically, hey, you need to deal with your grief.
Right.
Don't forget about your
Right.
husband, but don't like set yourself off.
So it's almost like the Babdook's like not a malevolent force, but almost like a force for um like forcing her to start dealing with her issues instead of just like burying them down. Like
Mhm.
it's almost like her guardian angel, like her or the Babadook's her guardian angel
Not necessarily
almost.
that. I think it's more like the Ghost and the Signing, the book by Stephen
Mm,
King. I don't know if you ever read the book.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, because the book was more about the ghost were kind of opening up old feelings, old
Mm,
wounds.
mm-hmm.
The
Interesting.
Kubrick movie did not really address directly. I think that's what the Babadook really does. I think it's still sort of a villain, maybe, but I think it's really like the Ghost and the Signing, where you're kind of starting to open up emotions.
Hmm. Interesting.
These two characters.
Right. I mean, I think you're right. My feeling, at least, is like I don't see the Babadook as like an overt villain, um, but it's there to I don't know. It's hard to talk about because in one sense it is a malevolent force because it's attacking her complacency in the situation in a sense. Um, but at the same time, it's it's the representation of her grief, so she needs to deal with it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no easy answers here.
yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to that whole like she's trying to fight like her own mental whatever, and then the supernatural force.
Hmm.
Same thing with the signing, with the Jack Nicholson character,
Right.
or actually all three of those characters really. So my next question is why cockroaches?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I've never even really considered like why the cockroaches in there. Um, I mean, I guess to me, it's a common occurrence. I don't know how bad cockroaches are in Australia, but I can assume that um, the fear of your house being invaded by a pest
Mm,
is always a prevalent fear, and they use it in like horror movies all the time. And so I think if you look at it as like her house is an extension of her mind because she stays inside her house all the time.
mhm.
She keeps everything trapped inside. That there's something happening behind the walls that she can't control. I think is where that fear comes from, and it could probably be anything, but I think cockroaches work well because they're bugs that it's not like a rodent or a mammal, you know what I mean, that lives behind the walls, or like something that's like living. Like these are like insects, and so like they feel more foreign. They feel like the xenomorph in Alien. I don't know. I think it's a common fear, but I think it has to do with like her house being invaded or her mind being invaded by the Babadook and stuff like that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I'm gonna bank off of you a little bit. I think
Hmm.
the cockroaches represent grief
Hmm.
because people
Okay.
don't like cockroaches.
Yeah, it's true.
Um, and I think it's a symptom of her grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, because because no one wants to grieve over anything.
Right. 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 And who's to say that like grief can't take many forms? Grief does take many forms, and so if the Babadook represents the loss of her husband, then there could be any number of things that she is suppressing beyond just that, um, which those could be the metaphor for those as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think the Babadook is living in the basement at the end? What is the significance of the basement?
I mean, I think it ties back to all of the belongings of her husband that are down there. Um, and so that's where Sam goes down there and he plays with all the old stuff. That's where all of her memories are of him, where she's like kept it and like sealed it away. And so by sealing the Babadook down there, she's essentially doing the same thing, but she has to go check on it. She has to go feed it. She
Hmm.
has to acknowledge its existence versus like before she kept everything in boxes down there. Like
Right.
she kept her husband like locked away. And whenever someone brought it up, she's like, I don't talk about him. You know what I mean? Like I don't bring it up. And so now she has to acknowledge it. She has to face it head on. I think that's what the significance is.
Well, often there's a line in the book that says if it's in a word or in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. You're never going to get rid of the Babadook. You're never going to get rid of
Right.
your grief. You're always going to grieve. She's always going to grieve about her husband. It's just, if you ever seen that picture, maybe Inside Out,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you're always going to have feelings. Like it's okay to get angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be scared. It's more how you deal with it.
Of course. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of playing off of that kind of thing.
Right.
Also, like people store stuff in basements. So maybe she's hiding. So it's like she's hiding her emotions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which ties back to what you're saying, where that's where her husband's stuff is.
Right.
I'm gonna skip the next question for right now and go to my last one.
Okay.
I'll go back to the other one in a second.
Okay. All right.
What do you think there were clips from George Méliès movies in the middle of the movie, or just horror clips in general? Let's focus on the George Méliès thing right now.
Hmm. Uh, I think a lot of those. I think a lot of what she's watching on television is influencing her in a lot of ways. So
That
she
puppet
watches,
that kind of flops down in that one Mila Jovovich movie.
right?
Kind of like a foreshadow of how the Babadook.
Exactly. And so
I just never
I
thought about
wonder
that.
so is she seeing that, and then her mind is interpreting that as the Babadook, and then is putting it out into the real world, and so like the television is informing how she sees the creature and stuff like that, or how her mind works. So like early on, like we talked about the scene where where she is she goes to be alone with herself upstairs, but before that she's watching the television. She's watching the television, right? And she sees this old movie, and that's what informs her decision to go do those things. But then she's seeing like the George Méliès stuff later, and that is informing like the Babadook's coming, sort of like a calling card to him. And I think just the design of the Babadook is very much German expressionism, old Hollywood, black and white. Yeah,
Even how they did the effects for the Babadook is very George Méliès.
yeah.
If you don't know who that is, go watch the Scorsese movie Hugo.
Mm.
Really good movie. That's the first Scorsese movie I've ever seen. I saw it in class one time before summer break.
I haven't watched it. I saw it in theaters.
It's really good.
2011. I remember really liking it then. I have not watched it since.
Yeah, I
then.
didn't know who that guy was, but he was such an influence on cinema because he was a musician.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, George
Right. And I think that. Oh no, and I think that plays back to Sam wanting to be a magician, and George Méliès and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's a lot of connecting threads in there.
Yeah,
and then cinema being a magical art, that we can conjure demons out of thin air and present them on the screen as if they're real, or have real implications to our characters.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it. George Méliès with a musician. He basically, during the early days of cinema, and he basically discovered that new art, and he basically used a lot of his tactics in movies. One of his most iconic movies, Trip to the Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that iconic shot with Rocket and the moon's eye. Yeah, pretty iconic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I mean, cinema is one big master break, anyways.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, which is a really good movie.
Yeah. No, it's all about it is, all of it is like from the editing to the music, the sound, everything is all a magic trick.
Yeah, it's manipulating you. Really.
Yeah, exactly. And then so how does that play back into to this movie, in the sense that, one, Jennifer Kent, the director, is manipulating us by using editing, sound, and all that stuff to make us feel for this character, one, and then to be scared by something that may not exist at all. And then how is that manipulation on her as a character, and how she's either manipulating herself or the doctor to give her son pills, or her sister to feel bad for her, or the son to be normal or not to be normal. You know what I mean? So like, I think it all kind of ties together loosely if you like really want to think about it, but at the same time it's also just really cool.
Yeah. So I got a few more questions here.
Yeah.
So the last one I got written down. Do you think the Babadook is the ghost of Amelia's husband? And that's just like
I don't think
an actual ghost, but like a ghost of the past, maybe.
Yeah. I don't think it is. I don't think whatever the Babadook is her husband. I think like you were saying that that the Babadook itself may not necessarily be the spindly arms, like long arms guy. You know what I mean? Like, I think the representation of him, especially since we don't see him at the end, or like after he's like disrobed, I don't think it's her husband. I think he was just using that memory as sort of a device to fuel her grief and to make her do what it wants her to do, or what she wants to do. You can make that argument, but like to kill her son, I think is using her memory of her husband to influence her to do that.
Man, my mind's gone all over the place. Now that you're saying that, maybe the Babadook's not real. Maybe it is all in her head.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what she was saying to those agents, that we had to sort a few things out.
right, right. It's like she had to sort a few things out, and
Mm.
like her son was at the receiving end of this. The Babadook does an amazing reversal in the middle of the movie. So for the first like 40 minutes or so, you're like, this kid is terrible, and he won't act up, and like she's in such a bad position. Like I feel bad for her. Like and I want her to get out of this. I want it to be better. And then in the middle of the movie, everything shifts, and she becomes unstable, and our alliance falls onto the kid now. I think it does that really well, especially like from the beginning. Like the kid is almost unbearable
Right.
to like watch, and then just to like fully manipulate us as an audience into putting our sympathies now into him. Amazing, it's great. It's like a masterstroke.
So I got maybe like three more questions. Uh, Another question. I'm referencing a lot of like parts in this movie that remind me of like other movies like The Signing, Exorcist, Evil Dead, Suspiria.
Yeah.
Um, do you see any other influences in this movie? Like maybe like Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, like a supernatural force, like this really messing with people, or even like Pennywise from It.
Right, right. No, yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on with like The Shining. The Shining's definitely because I mean, dealing with like mental illness and abuse.
Yeah, the monster
But
representing something bigger.
Right, right. And so I think The Shining for sure for me is like one that's like it's not aping off The Shining, but it does take a lot of cues
Mm.
from its imagery and from the implications of its like monster to these people, whether it's real or not.
Mm.
But as
Yeah,
far as that goes, I mean, there's like any number of movies. I think it goes back. I think you can tie it back into like the George Méliès stuff too, and like all
yeah,
the silent cinema and Jordan expressionism stuff, like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and things like that.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna add something to that. You know, like I said, like even the first time I saw this movie, I thought it's very like Shining, for like meets like Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, like
Right.
against like I said, like a supernatural force, like messing with somebody.
And his hands, like it's got those
Yeah.
like
Well, that part when he popped the claws out, that was very Freddy Krueger.
right.
Also on Elm Street, Nancy deals with a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with her parents being divorced and her mom's an alcoholic, and then
Right.
like a sin of the father or parents coming back to haunt them.
Of course, and how that influences her. And it's like that one is I think Nightmare on Elm Street's a little more overt that there is a monster out there, but then you could also double back on that and go like, is all of this the symptom is this like nightmare that these kids keep having and dying from a symptom of their parents' sins, like you were saying,
Mm.
like it because of her alcoholism, because of their like abuse at the hands of Freddy Krueger. Like is it all just mental illness that's spreading to this
Yeah,
town?
I think this movie more connects more to like It,
Yeah.
because specifically It uses certain things that these kids are scared of against them.
Right, right. And I think the idea of like the not seeing the Babadook at the end, not seeing what it really looks like, and sort of like the idea that it is not the clown like Pennywise. It is not Pennywise. It's like the Deadlights who becomes this giant spider creature thing. I forget what it's called.
The Deadlights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it definitely that ties back in as well.
Okay, next question. What is your favorite scene in this movie, and the scariest scene in this movie for you?
Scariest scene in the movie to me is where it first comes into the bedroom.
Ooh.
That's because it's the first time we see it, and we've been waiting like 40 minutes for like something otherworldly to happen because it's if you've seen the trailers for it, if you kind of know what the movie is about, or you've seen like the poster, even it's about a monster who's gonna and you wait like 40 minutes, and so like that tension it builds in that first 40 minutes. That first scene is like terrifying to me. But favorite scene.
The hard one.
Yeah, no, it is a hard one. I really like I really like the and honestly this is one that always catches me off guard. It's the scene, I think we talked about it briefly earlier, where she sees her son is like murdered, and so she stands up to like go to him, and then it cuts to a shot of him like screaming and like saying mom, and then you reveal that she has like the knife in her hand, and just like the implications of that is like the full break in her mind, like she doesn't even know what she's doing, and so as us as an audience can finally like really start like, is she really like crazy now at that point? I think that's maybe my favorite like moment. As far as like favorite scene, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say for me, the scariest scene is when she's watching the news and she sees herself.
Mm,
That is so freaky, that close up.
yeah.
Favorite part is when she's going downstairs and hears the whispering, and it ends up being the conversation between Sam and the neighbor over the phone. I thought that was so genius how they did that.
Yeah, no, it was great. I was listening with like headphones on this time. It was the first time I ever watched this movie with like headphones on. And like really like hearing all those whispers like move and like circle back and like fade in and fade out. It's like really nice.
Yeah, like I said, it was very Suspiria.
Yeah, agree.
And then last question, unless you have any questions for me.
I think we covered all of it.
Since this movie is sort of not focuses on a monster, but the monsters in the title of the movie, and the Babadook is pretty iconic. In your opinion, what is your favorite like movie monster of all time?
Oh.
Or your favorite and the scariest one to you?
Oh man.
Or some of your favorites?
I will say, ever since I was a kid, I've always loved like the Freddy Krueger movies.
Ooh.
And it's just because I had a cousin who had a poster of Freddy Krueger in his bedroom, and it was the scariest thing to me for a number of years, and then it became the coolest thing to me for a number of years.
Yes, right.
So it's like that, somewhere between like being like 7 and 8 and like being super scared of something and then liking it like in the next couple little bit. So Freddy Krueger, I've always loved those movies. But then real life scaries are like Jack Nicholson and The Shining, and like
with that whole fear of a parent
right
happening on you.
I'm blanking. I feel like I had another one too.
Well, I'm talking more like supernatural monster or like animals. And that's like human monsters.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Ooh, supernatural monsters.
One of my favorites is King Kong.
Okay, yeah. No, I do love
King Kong.
Yeah.
More than Godzilla, because I didn't really grow up with Godzilla as a kid. I remember going on the King Kong ride at Universal Studios. I was really little, and it had a big effect on me. Didn't watch the movie till much later. I actually saw the Peter Jackson one before the original. It freaked me out.
Nice. I love King Kong. I saw the Peter Jackson one in theaters. And King Kong's always like the interesting sort of sympathetic villain in a sense. But to me, I mean, going kind of against what you just said, I've always really loved Godzilla too. If we're going into like big kaiju monster battles and stuff like that, I've always loved like the old Godzilla movies. Like super silly, like especially once they got out of like Gojira is almost like a different movie by comparison, like the first Godzilla movie.
Gojira.
Yeah, Gojira. Like the first one is.
There's a French metal band called Gojira, who's
really.
Yeah, they're kind of like technical death metal.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, like the later ones, like the ones in like the 60s and 70s, are all like super fun and silly, and there's big moths and giant metal robots and stuff like that. It's not scary, but it's super fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. The guy that created Godzilla, he fought in WW2 on Japan's side, and he saw all the nuclear destruction.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, then he basically based that character off of that kind of like that fear and not fear, but like more like the tragedy of it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why like that first one is more than just like a big monster movie tearing through town. It does have that implications of the nuclear holocaust that happened in Japan like a few years before that, and like the fears that what that had on the lives of those people who had to live in its aftermath.
Well, then you had that
Yeah.
doctor or a scientist in that movie that built that water or the oxygen moving device from like water or
Mhm.
whatever. So he builds this thing like a seemingly good thing that can be used for destruction.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of like the nuclear bomb. It's interesting.
Of course.
Now,
I mean, it's like go ahead.
no. But as far as the scariest movie monsters, the xenomorph for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I don't know why I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
the xenomorph and the face.
First one at least. Yeah, no, Facehugger, and honestly for me, like Facehugger is scarier than the
It's
Xenomorph.
impregnating you essentially.
Right. So it is
So many people say that like the whole xenomorph facehugger thing is very like sexual. Like there's kind of like a sexual connotation there, especially with the facehugger because you're basically getting violated.
Kinda is, yeah. Right. Oh yeah, and it's like its anatomy is very fleshy and for lack of a better word, vaginal. Just
Yeah,
how it's like shaped and everything. So it does play with a lot of those like fears.
Yeah, I gotta go with the raptors from Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those things are scary.
Super scary when I was a kid. I saw the first Jurassic Park in theaters in '94, and I was like 7, and I was probably too young to see that movie in theaters, and so it was really scary.
Yeah, another one, Babadook from what it represents. The thing I really like.
Yeah, I guess you could consider the thing because well, I mean, I guess I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, it is because it takes so many different forms. But yeah, no, it's the thing is like a marvel of practical effects. All the practical effects in that movie
gory,
are so
consistently gory of a movie if you think about it. Because I was watching it last night.
Not.
Yeah, it's not consistent.
Right.
Like it is gory, but it's not. The whole thing's not gory. Like an Evil Dead.
Right. Well, it's not like the most disturbing parts are very fast. So like the
Didn't linger on anything.
Right, you're right. And so like the old man giving the putting the paddles to the guy's chest and then like biting his hands off is like over in a second. But then it's all that like sinewy sort of like yellow and green like gunk that pulls apart. All that stuff is like super gross to me.
So on that note, do you have any more questions about like theories or
about
interpretations?
Babadook? I will just say that it's a movie that I love. I watch it like once every few years. It's a movie I keep going back to and like discovering and thinking about and watching over and over again. And I just I love talking about it. So
yeah,
we could do a part 2. We could go through the whole movie again if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think I want to watch it again for sure at some point.
Yeah. Right. It's always to me, it's like one of those movies that I watch it and I talk to someone about it and then I'm like, ooh, I want to watch it again.
Yeah. I was gonna say something else. I don't remember. But yeah, I think we almost talked about this movie for like almost 2 hours. It seems like.
Oh shit. So we went almost the entire length of the Babadook. We talked about the Babadook for the length of the Babadook.
Well, one thing I was gonna say was I had it at number 10 on my top 10 horror movies list. I think I'm gonna I can shoot it down to like 6 or 7.
Really?
Yeah, because it's that good. And it had a really emotional effect on me. Also, I'm a sucker for like mother and son movies.
Yeah.
Like this and like The Sixth Sense because of my for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another reason why I like it so much.
Oh yeah, no, I love this movie.
Yeah, but
it works on so many different levels.
oh yeah, it really does, and I think some of the best movies work on that.
Right.
But yeah, thanks for sticking with us for like an hour and a half, 2 hours as we explore the Babadook. So thanks for watching and bye.